I found a statistic: 96% of us think we're good listeners, but we really only retain half of what we actually hear. And there's such a big difference between thinking we're listening versus actually hearing what the other person is really telling us, what they're saying, and also what they're not saying. And so listening to learn is really about bringing that intention to be present, to really take in what's most important, not just the content of what someone says, the facts, the figures, the logic, the claims, the arguments, but also what's the emotion that they're expressing and displaying. Often the emotion is more important than the content of what they have to be saying, but also even the actions. Like, what are you observing them doing? Are they agreeing with you? Are they pushing back? Are they asking questions? The actions that people take are a type of information as well. And so content, emotion, and actions are three channels that we need to be listening for and listening through. I think of it almost the way that I think a music aficionado they can listen for the vocals, and they can listen for the percussion, and they can listen, for the harmony, and they can isolate each one, but they can also put it together in a way that gives them such a richer understanding of that piece of music. And we can do the same with ourselves. We can train ourselves for each of those different kinds of things. I interviewed another kind of professional listener that I interviewed for the book. Was journalists, because journalists are constantly asking questions and listening. And so I interviewed one journalist, Jenny West Anderson, and she would say to me that she would record her interviews with her subjects, and then she'd go back and listen to them 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. And what was striking to me, she said, every time I listened to it, I heard something I just literally had not heard before the time before, and then the third time, and then the fourth time. And I think to myself, if a professional listener like her is missing something on time 2 and time 3, how much are the rest of us mere mortals literally just not hearing in terms of what the other person is saying to us?
What a good strategy. I wish more journalists would do that, because I have done so many interviews where they write the exact wrong thing,
right,
or nothing close. I was just in an article the other day where something that I said was attributed to someone else, and it was probably the best thing I said the entire time. And I'm reading this thing and I'm like, oh man, this guy didn't say that. I said that. And it's what I say every time. And then they attribute it to the wrong person. And I'm like, they weren't even listening. They were so frustrating. They were just making stuff up as they went.
Yeah. Now, some journalists can overcome that. I mean, when I'm interviewed by journalists, I so much prefer that before they publish the article, they just come back to me and say, here's what I think you said, and what I'm planning to quote you on. Is that right? That probably happens like 1 out of every 5 times, but it's so, I so appreciate it so much. And there's an analog of that to what we can do in our conversations, which is a strategy I just call paraphrase and test. So when you're listening to someone, just pause for a second and say, hey, this is what I think I heard you just say. Did I get that right? Or did I miss something? Or what would you modify to what I took away? And it's amazing to me. This is, if your listeners take away nothing else from this episode, this is one immediately applicable strategy that is like, it's magic. If you just paraphrase, here's what I think I heard that you say. Did I get that right? It has 3 benefits. Like, the first benefit is chances are you didn't get it right. And so you actually get the chance to correct your understanding. At least 50% of the time, when I paraphrase and say it back to the other person, they will say to me, well, you kind of got it, but that's not exactly what I was saying. Or that is what I said, but now that you say it back to me, I realize I have something else to say. So you just get better information. The second benefit is that it slows things down, especially if it's a tense conversation. You're in the heat of the moment. You're in this point, counterpoint, ping pong match. If you just change it up and say, like, before I make my next point back to you, I just want to check that I understand what you said. It changes the whole energy of the conversation. And then the third thing is, and this might be the most important, it just says to the other person, I care about you. Like, I care about you enough that I'm going to take my own time and energy to, in my own words, state back what I think I heard you say and ask if I got it. It brings people closer. So this is the magic move. It's just paraphrase and check back if you understood them, and it changes everything about your listening.
Well, this is also taught in Chris Voss's book, Never Split the Difference.
Yep.
The famous FBI negotiator and hostage negotiator, and mirroring in general helps someone feel heard. So if there's a way that we can have some level of repeating what someone has said in any capacity, they feel more in tune with you as a human, because they actually think you're taking, even if you don't agree on anything, they at least think you're listening to their points. And that's, again, so powerful.
Negotiators use this, mediators use this, therapists use this, marriage counselors use, and people have different names for it.
Right.
But it's the reason people continue to share it is because we don't do it enough. Like, it is just so, it's so striking how powerful it is, and yet how rarely it actually gets done.
Yeah, I do it all the time because I'm so fast and my brain moves so quick that I do it because sometimes I am misinterpreting or I'm listening to the last part and I read emails sometimes and I've read like the first 4 lines of the email and I'm like, "Oh, okay, I already know what this is about." And
Right,
someone will be
totally.
like, "Hey, did you read the end of the email, Scott?" And I'm like, "Oh, darn it. No, I
Right.
didn't."
Yeah. And you can
So,
do this on email too. Sometimes people will send me kind of a convoluted email or maybe an email that's triggering a reaction in me. And before I shoot back, some reaction, I can just say, let me just check. Is this what you're asking me? Is this what you're saying to me? And if not, can you clarify? And so usually whatever is getting me pissed off is not as bad as I thought it was. They just clarify it. And, especially if it's somebody on my own team, it's usually coming from a good place, even if that's not how I read it the first time.
I call that I love that, and I use the power of the voice text. So,
Hmm.
if I'm misinterpreted or somebody asks me a follow-up question and I have not clearly communicated because again, we have a choice. We can say it's somebody else misinterpreting what we said, or it can be me not saying it clear enough. And I like to err on the side of my lack of clarity in my
Yeah.
message. And when I do
Yes.
that, then I just leave a quick voice message that says, "Hey Jeff, that must have sounded ridiculous. I'm really sorry. Here's what I meant by that. And listen, either way, I'm good. I just wanted you to know that this was where my head was at, but lead me. This is your cup of tea, and I'm happy to bounce back if you want to do this or whatever it may be." And it's amazing how I'll get like the heart emoji on it or something. Someone's like, "Oh, dude, I love that. Thank you."
Yeah. Yeah.
For
And what I love about that is that even if the other person is not making the move of saying to you, Scott, this is what I think you're saying, did I get that right? You can sense that maybe they should be making that move. And so you're giving them the clarification that they need and are not yet asking for. And I love the fact that you're adding a much richer texture of how to do it by bringing your voice into it, through a voice note.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I wrote emails over the years, and I go back at the end of every email and write the beginning. So I am results oriented to the point where I actually will go right into, I won't even put the person's name in the email. I literally just immediately go, "What are we doing here? And how are we going?" Like I'm just going right when I have to solve something, all things go out. And so I've gotten in the habit in my life of going down to the bottom, finishing the email, then going back up to the top and writing, "Hey, Jeff, so sorry that missed you the other day. Hope your kids are doing great. I know graduation's coming up. Listen, couple quick things. Boom." And that's my defense mechanism because I'm horrible at it. And
Yeah.
so I have
That's
to
great
recognize it and
self-awareness.
change.
Yeah. I love that. I love that.
If you like clips like this, I have a similar clip here. And if you want to watch the full video, click here.